Hi, kindergartners. Mrs. Schmidt here. I want to share with you about the artist Pablo Picasso. We're going to be creating some spring flowers, and we're using one of his works to inspire us in our own artwork. But let's take a look. This is Pablo Picasso in the picture here. He was a very familiar in this striped shirt is very characteristic of Pablo Picasso. He was a Spanish artist who lived from 1881 to 1973, and was super creative. We're going to take a look at some of his self-portraits throughout the years. And he was incredibly creative. He experimented with many different styles and ways of approaching his ideas and art throughout the years. Below you will see a variety of his self-portraits and how his style changed over the years. So if you follow my little arrow cursor here, we're going to kind of look at each one of these. This one here that looks very realistic, he painted when he was only 15 years old. He had great skill as a young man. In fact, his father was an art teacher, and so he started quite young, being able to get instruction and learn and grow as an artist. Next here in this black and white one, we see he was 18 years old when he did this. This looks like a charcoal drawing. In the middle here, in the blue one, he was 20 years old. His style looks very realistic in these, although he creates a sense of mood with the blue. You think about how it might make you feel, just those blues. Well, it has like this calmness, almost a sadness to it, though. He had a period of his life where he was very sad, and he did a bunch of paintings with a whole blue color scheme to kind of represent that emotion. Moving on, he was 24 years old when he painted this one. The style is kind of starting to change. It doesn't quite look as realistic as those young works. Moving on to 25. Notice his self-portrait is much more angular. You see like straight angles. We see big eyes. It's not realistic. It's more kind of abstract. He became interested in Cubism, which was a style of art, probably around this time, and it used a lot of kind of straight lines and create cubes and angles and so on. So if we move down to the bottom row here, we see he was 35 years old when he did this drawing. Now this kind of looks a little bit more realistic, but more of a line drawing. At 56, he did this. This style became known as Picassoism. It's like he created his own kind of style. Notice you can see it looks like you can see his face kind of from the side, as we see the profile of the nose and the mouth and so on. But also from the front at the same time. Normally, if somebody's turned, you only see one of their eyes. But if they're facing forward, you see both of the eyes. Well, here we can see both the eyes, but the side of the nose, just like you can see the side of my nose. And so he became what we call more abstract with his work. But you might think that maybe he got worse over time. Maybe his skills got worse as he got older. But I don't think that's it at all. I think he got more playful and more creative over the years, and took more risks with his work, experimented more. Notice when he was 83 years old, he painted this one, and the colors are not at all realistic. His hair is green. His eyebrows are green. His skin is blue and kind of gray and red. But again, it's more fun, playful, and experimental. At 89 years old, he created this one. Again, we see that side of the face and also the front of the face at the same time. But notice, like the hands are very stylized, and it does not look realistic at all, but we still recognize it as a person. And lastly, this one, when he was 90, notice like the way he created texture with his pencil or whatever drawing tool he was using, or maybe he used pen. It almost has a three-dimensional look, almost like it's a statue. And, you know, he doesn't have ears, you know, and it's kind of deformed, but it's very interesting, intriguing, you know, which is more interesting, the more realistic, I'm sorry, this is moving, the more realistic or the more experimental and creative. So that just shows you kind of how Picasso changed throughout the years as he continued in his work as an artist. Here is the picture that we're going to use for our inspiration today. It's called Bouquet of Peace, and Picasso created this in 1958. It's a very quick, kind of loose drawing. It looks like maybe hands giving a bouquet to another person. And we see these flowers are very loose, and it almost looks like it could be, you know, a child's artwork, and very colorful, and the flowers and so on. So we're going to create our own version. Before we do, though, I would like you to take some time and watch a video called Picasso. It is based on one of my favorite books about Picasso. This is the book here. It's from a series, Getting to Know the World's Greatest Artists. And so there's a YouTube video that I'd like you to check out about that. It's a little over 5 minutes long. And then also I'm going to present with you with kind of a drawing lesson on how to go about putting together your own hands with flowers. Hi, boys and girls. We've been looking at some of the artwork by famous artist Pablo Picasso, and now we're going to be creating our own bouquet with flowers inspired by Picasso's work. Now, the way we start is we're going to do a tracing of our hand. So here's my hand. I'm going to put it kind of towards the middle of my paper. I'm going to start with pencil to trace my hand in case I mess up. If you have someone to help you, they may be able to help you just kind of with a crayon or a marker. I'm going to start mine with a pencil and then just carefully trace over. So, let's see, here we go. There, we have a tracing of my hand, and now I'm going to darken it so you can see the line a little better. Usually if you do draw with pencil and then trace with marker, it's a good idea to go back and erase any pencil lines that are showing to help it look more finished. All right, here we go around each of the fingers very carefully. So this is going to be your hand that's holding the flowers. Now, as I work, usually when you're holding on to something, your thumb is towards, kind of more towards the top. So if I'm holding on to something, you can kind of see here, I have some flowers here. I could hold these flowers, and my thumb is towards the top here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my paper around. So that way it was easier for me to trace my hand because I was able to trace my left hand because I'm right-handed. And then all I had to do was turn it in order to put my thumb towards the top. So it looks like I'm going to hold on to those flowers. Now, let's add the flowers in, although I would recommend maybe doing a little practice. Fortunately, this is a good project for spring because we see so many beautiful flowers kind of starting to pop up out of the ground. You'll see I'm just using a scrap paper. This has a bunch of writing on it. I don't need it anymore. So I'm using a scrap paper to kind of experiment. You may want to use markers or crayons, or if you have paint, go ahead and use that. And I'm going to take a look at some different kinds of flowers to practice before I start my final artwork. So here I just have some fake flowers. This you can kind of notice the color combinations. So the center is kind of like a yellowy, kind of light brown.
And then, so I'll start with a circle because it looks like a circle in the center. And then I'm going to maybe add some yellow too. I like kind of just the opportunity to brighten it up a little bit. And maybe add a little in the swirl. Now I'm using oil pastels. They're kind of one of my favorite kinds of art materials because they make such bright colors. Now if we look at Picasso's work, his drawing looks like it's very quick, what we call kind of loose. He probably did it pretty quickly and kind of had fun as he was doing it. He didn't spend a lot of time finding all those details in the flower, and so it's kind of a certain style that he was creating. So you can see here I'm kind of working quickly. There's a lot more petals than what I have in my drawing here, so maybe I'll add some more in. The fun thing is you can kind of do some color mixing if you want to. They don't all have to be all purple. Maybe what I'll do is I'm noticing like the tips of this flower are kind of darker, and so maybe what I'll do is I'll kind of put a little bit of purple here towards the center, and then on the edges use a pretty blue and allow that to kind of mix. Ooh, that's kind of fun and fancy. So you can have fun with this. These can be as creative as you want. Okay, what I would do is I'd continue working on this. Now this is just a practice to kind of get familiar with the different kinds of flowers that you could put in yours. Okay, here this one kind of looks like a rose or similar to a tulip. So let's see here. You can kind of see. Maybe I'll try and draw one of these, and then maybe I'll get started on my final piece. Now, let's see. I can kind of go with the pink color if I want to, or try a different color. So let's try kind of adding in. So we got kind of some petals here, and I'm kind of allowing my eye to follow the curve of the petal, studying it as I draw. We have another petal here. We have another one here, and then one that kind of opens up a little bit more, like that. Very simple. And then, you know, again, I can get creative with my colors. Maybe you want to use more than one color on these flowers. That's the nice thing, is you can be creative. If you look at Pablo Picasso's drawing of the flowers, he has all different colors that he used in his flowers. So I think I'm going to put that in there, and then let's see, I do notice there's some green kind of coming up, some little leaves kind of up here, so I'm going to try that, and then that goes into the stem. Okay, and then we'll add a little bit more color, all right, into the petals. And like that. And I can create a little bit of shadow if I want to. Okay, it doesn't have to be hard. So, you know, I'd encourage you to practice drawing some different kinds of flowers. If you have flowers to look at, or you could look at pictures that are on the internet, or you can just, you know, come up with your own simple ones, or look at Picasso's and use that as an example. So here are my examples, practices on a scrap paper. So now back to my hand picture. This is where I'm going to start adding in some of my flowers. So up here, I think I'm going to go with that one that I had initially drawn. I got kind of the yellow center. So going back to this flower here, the yellow center, it was a little bit darker. So I'm going to add in some of that light brown. And then it had a little bit of yellow kind of going around the outside. And then I'll add in my petals. And having, you know, already practiced, I kind of have an idea of what I'm doing, which is always helpful. Oftentimes artists kind of plan out their work before they start on their final one, which just helps them to have a more successful piece because they kind of know what they're doing already. So I could keep it as simple as this if I want to, but I kind of liked having more of those petals like in my example. So I think I'll add those in. And they're just a lot of layers, very similar shaped. Okay. Really fill it in here. So you'll notice right now I'm just going to do the flowers. I'm not going to add the stems in yet. The stems are going to be kind of my last step for the project. All right, this is a nice full flower. Okay. Okay, so then I can spend some time coloring it in. And you know, on my other piece, my practice one, I put darker colors at the edges, but you know what, I think I'm going to try putting some of that pink that I used on that other like rose-like flower at the edges. Flowers have so many different variations of color. You can be as creative as you want. You don't have to worry about, oh, is it realistic or anything like that. Be creative. Here we go. So there's that, and then I'm going to take my pink and just fill in. Now, the nice thing about the oil pastels, and I know you probably don't have any at home, but they're kind of like big crayons, but they mix really nicely. So I kind of enjoy that on these petals. But a lot of my students, if you guys have Mrs. Schmidt, you know that I really like oil pastel, and we use that often in class. So you're familiar with how bold the colors are. All right, so we have one flower completed. And now, you know what? I liked kind of using that rose. So I'm going to put a rose in there, but vary it a little bit. Again, let's see, where should I put this rose? Maybe here. Again, I'm looking at kind of the way the curve of the petals goes. Let's see, we'll go like that. And this kind of curves over here. We see the larger center petal kind of coming up and over. And then we have this other petal. It looks like it's separated a little bit from the other side, and I'm going to bring it a little bit closer in because I want to make it look a little bit kind of tighter. So there we go. And I see some other petals kind of back here and here. All right, so there we go. And then I did want to add in those leaves again. I'll make sure I don't want to leave those out. So we'll kind of put that in. It's a little bit brighter green there. And that, and then another one over here. So again, I'm gonna wait to fill in my stems, but at least that's started. Next, let's color that in. Let's see. Put some pink on here. Again, if I color it all the same, I'm going to lose some of my detail. So I'm going to kind of vary it in certain spots to create some differentiation. So I know that it's not just a pink blob. And this is the kind of thing that artists decide. It looks like I have a little bit of the green kind of working in. It got on my oil pastel. And you can kind of see a little bit darker area here. I actually kind of like that. So we'll mix that in. Put a line there. And then those areas that I've left white, I'll probably go back and add, you know, some other color. Ooh, a little more green kind of mixing in. All right. So I kind of like that green. I'm just going to add just a real light green here. And then if I go over with my oil pastel, it'll blend it really cool and create some shadow. And you know, maybe, let's see, I wonder what a yellow might look like. All right, and mixing in there. So it creates a different feel than the real one, or my example, but it still looks like a rose or kind of like a tulip. So I think I'm going to leave it like that. We can add in maybe some smaller flowers. And let's see, I'm going to put one here. I'm going to make this one real simple. Ooh, it's real bright orange. I'm going to make this one super bright. And I'm actually going to do mine kind of like Picasso did. His looks so quick. And it almost looks like he just made little marks here on his paper for the petals. It's just very simplistic. And, you know, this flower is kind of overlapping the others. You can kind of see like that. All right. And, you know, I could leave it at that, or maybe I'll add in one more. And you can decide how many flowers you want to add into your work. Sometimes it's good to kind of limit your colors, and that if you get too many, it can get a little bit complicated. So maybe I'll add, ooh, you know what colors look really good together are? So purple and yellow, which I already have here. Let's see. Those look really good together. Maybe we'll make the petals yellow this time. You may think, you might have a certain type of flower that's like your favorite kind, and you might want to include that. I love daisies. Daisies just put a smile on my face. Now they have white petals, so it's a little bit harder, but they're kind of this style of flower. So we have a variety of flowers. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my stems. If I think about how my hand might be holding them, I'm going to put my stems over the top of my thumb, but behind my fingers, okay? So I don't want to draw over my hand because your hand would be like invisible or see-through. But I'm thinking that my thumb is behind the stems there. So we'll make another one over here. You might want to just curve. See, notice I'm kind of going behind the other flowers to make it look like it's kind of gathered together into a bouquet. A bouquet is kind of like loose stems held together by your hand. I'm going to use some different greens too. So, you know, here I have a real bright green. We could do that for this stem here. And again, you can kind of see the stems, you know, in between my fingers, but it's not over top of my hand. And then I'll do another really bright green one here. Say I see this and I'm like, oh, well, maybe I want to add in some little foliage. Maybe some, like, you know, a lot of times with bouquets you see some greenery and so on. Or you want to add some leaves onto your flowers. You know, for instance, I could totally do something like this. And maybe there's another one here. Maybe this one has thorns. Maybe I got to be careful of the thorns. So you can get as creative as you want. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, here is a basic drawing of the hand with flowers. You can kind of see the whole thing there. If I want to, I can go ahead and color in my hand. In Picasso's work, his hand was white. And so you are welcome to either keep it white or the color of your paper. Maybe you're using a colored paper. Or you can color it in to match kind of your skin tone. So there we go. And I always encourage my students to sign their work. So I'm actually going to use my marker. I'm going to write Mrs. Schmidt. Now, you probably don't know cursive, but sign it in your nicest writing, and there you go. You have your very own hand with flowers, inspired by Pablo Picasso's work. All right, thanks for joining me today. I hope you have fun with this project and enjoy just thinking about the beauty of flowers and the joy of spring and all the new flowers that start growing. All right, take care, kindergartners. Thanks. Bye.